everything you need to know about the new Porsche 911 facelift with driving the first ever Porsche 911 Hybrid here in the 911 GTS T Hybrid. Is it good? What's the performance and so on? Does it make sense? We'll find out with Thomas Autogefühl in 4K, full screen, full length. Let's go. Here, this Porsche 911 facelift, especially here in this GTS version, you can see the lower part has been redesigned. So all 911 get a new bumper and is also more aerodynamic also from this lower design. So the CD value has actually been improved. Carmine red is this vehicle color here. Then the lamps are now standard in the matrix LED, and optional you get HD matrix LED, so for even more high beam performance, the ones you can also see here. Then the length is 4 meters 55 or 179 inches. So the interesting thing about the 911 is it already looks long, but it's not actually that long in comparison to other vehicles. It's always very interesting, isn't it? And of course the very, very typical 911 shape, how also a lot of kids actually draw a vehicle with these really, really strong hips. On the technology side, first of all, you see standard for the GTS is 20-inch in the front in the wheels and 21-inch wheels in the rear. Optionally, we have here the carbon ceramic brakes. You can also see the yellow brake calipers as the contrast there. And technology-wise, also interesting, they worked on the suspension technology. The GTS gets the PASM as standard, that's the adaptive suspension technology, and also gets rear axle steering as standard. So the rear wheels turn in the opposite direction than the front wheels. You can also get an electro-hydraulic anti-tilt control, the PDCC. And then connected to that, if you have that, the lift system in the front also changes. So you can get two different lift systems for the front, like when you're going down a steep basement garage ramp or something, that it doesn't, hit the front in the lower part. So either you get the standard one, which takes some time, but if you have the PDCC, then you have like this extended hydraulic system, and then the front lifts up way, way quicker. Also very interesting to know. Towards the rear, we can see also a restyled rear bumper. It looks a little bit cleaner, I feel, actually. Then we also have the here sports exhaust. And in this case, you can also see it here with the with its black chrome tips. But you can see it's also a case for the Autogefühl fake exhaust police. So the outside tips are basically making it a little bit larger, but the air does go through. And then the light strip goes all the way through. Very, very clean design, I feel. And even cooler, of course, when, for example, the brake light is being turned on right here. Or also when you activate the turning indicators, there's always a very interesting light show. Now about the engine. This is, of course, the main thing here. And, well, we can at least open the service flap. That's what we can do. That's the only thing we can, see. Cute. Yeah, that's cute. So here you can do like oil, and then on the right side and some water. That's it basically. And see the coolers here. It's always interesting to see, nevertheless. But the base 911 also gets an upgrade. The base Carrera would start with a 3-liter 6-cylinder flat engine with around 400 horsepower and roughly 4 seconds in the acceleration figure. Like 3.9 is the German figure. That's already an upgrade. The base Carrera gets a biturbo. But then here, this new GTS gets a 3.6-liter 6-cylinder flat engine with a single turbo, so more displacement, 1 turbo less. But why? Well, this turbo is actually powered by an electric motor. So they actually have 2 electric motors in this one here, in this hybrid concept. So one electric motor is powering the turbo, actually, that single turbo, and the other electric motor is directly powering the whole system, the wheels. However, together, it's not that it's separately on one axle or so on. So the electric power and the combustion engine power totally comes together. So you bring down like emissions and you comply the new laws and so on. At the same time, you increase performance. So this one here, as it stands right now, is 3 seconds in the acceleration figure. That's a previous figure of a 911 turbo. That's of course very impressive, and they promise there is no turbo lag at all. Of course, when driving it today, we will find out if that's true. And then of course has been like the huge discussion, yeah, but what about the weight? This hybrid system only adds 50 kilograms of weight. It was one of the main things they were paying attention to. And of course, you know, that's just like even less than having like a co-driver or not. So we should not feel that. Of course, we are going to find out more about that too. And there's also recuperation possible, for example, but they do not use brake blending. So when you use the brakes, you should not feel anything from the recuperation. So these details are all soon to come when we drive it. That battery size, by the way, is 2 kilowatt hours, and there's a 400 volt board net. And interesting is that the engine in the rear is always also started by the high voltage system. However, you still have a low voltage system, a 12 volt board net on board, to start the high voltage system. That's also interesting to know. And the recuperation is up to 32 kilowatts, so we can also gain some energy back to the battery. And here, we can also see, you can see the typical Frunk. You can actually house a cabin trolley here vertically in it. That's pretty cool. And you know, you might not only use it for a racetrack, but also then for luggage. And this is like 70 centimeters in width and about 70 inches. And here the maximum height is 55 centimeters or 22 inches. So 540 horsepower it is then here for the GTS version. And you might have seen here it says 911 Carrera 4 GTS. This is the all-wheel drive version, of course, with the rear-wheel bias. However, you can get the GTS as rear-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. And the interesting thing now is that the acceleration figure of this 3 seconds is actually the same, both for rear-wheel drive and all-wheel drive. So it's impressive that also the rear-wheel drive only version can bring the same traction on the ground. And now a sound check. I'll rev it a little bit and then you tell me in the comments, what do you think about that sound? These flaps here in the lower part, they are indeed active. That's why also better aerodynamics. But then you might wonder, wait a minute, we are stationary and they're open? Why is that? That is actually law. So by law, for some safety regulations, they have to be open when, you know, like driving really, really slow speeds. For whatever reason, that is safer than being closed. Kind of weird, isn't it? And then at slow speeds, but not super slow, they close because no additional cooling is needed. And then when you drive really high speed performance, then again they open for the cooling performance. Interesting, isn't it? Yeah, and then you might think also about, yeah, this hybrid system, does it always have the same full power? Yes and no. It depends also on the driving mode. So when you're driving it normally like a customer on the street, probably you won't ever notice like a power difference or loss. But then it depends on driving mode. Sport mode at some point retains a certain battery level. Yeah, that's of course also on the cost of consumption and so on. But there won't be any difference between the lap times. If you use the Sport Plus mode and then do a hot lap, then actually the battery is depleted for like a length of Nürburgring Nordschleife. They trimmed it to that one. And then the second lap will be a little bit less quick or with a little bit less performance. So this is like for this hot lap performance. As I said, usually most customers will never feel that difference. It's only when you use it probably on the racetrack with the Sport Plus mode and want to do this one hot lap like they did on the Nürburgring Nordschleife, where it was 8.7 seconds quicker than the predecessor with this hybrid system. So yes, it works for the performance, but basically with all hybrid systems, at some point, you don't have the constant power, but in this very case, most, like 90% of people driving this vehicle will never feel that because the battery won't be depleted that quickly, or since when you won't use it on the racetrack, you won't probably feel it at all. And of course, here always great to show off when you extend the spoiler also when being stationary. From different angles, that always looks cool. So, and you can also retract it again. In the infotainment system, you have to hold it then to retract for safety reasons. And when you want to put it up again, then one click is just enough. Of course, this happens then automatically when it goes high speed, then it goes up. And when you're driving slower again, it goes down. Interior, I love this key fob here in the 911 form. Then the door handles, they come towards you like this when you open or close the vehicle though. And then just this haptic feedback here feels, and when you listen to this, a little bit weird, isn't it? Then door closing sound. That's very rare. Here, one of the rare cases where we have frameless doors, of course, but still, the door closing sound is most awesome. Well done. And you can see here also it's dual installation glass. Interior design here with red contrast stitches that fits to the exterior color very well. And then there's a new pattern here at the inside of the doors, and this looks, it depends on how you look at it, you know. This could be a small arrow, but it also could be a small seat symbol, or it could be like a, you know, like almost triangle symbol. I don't know, like it depends on the...
Mercedes star?
A Mercedes star. Oh, I hope Porsche hasn't heard that. Yeah, but it really depends on the camera. It also looks like in person, and you see a different pattern like in every second you look at it. Interesting. Then here I have to say, though, the microfiber quality here at the inside of the doors is not the best. I have to say. Yeah, I don't know, but maybe it's different on the seat. Let's take a look very soon. Slim door pockets, as we used also from 911, but it's also of you know, fabric covered from the inside. That's actually nice. Then here you can open the rear service flap, and this is to open the frunk, but you can also do it on the key fob, of course. Then a nice 911 Carrera 4 GTS entry badge, and steering wheel here in the GTS. You can also get the microfiber steering wheel. That's of course really lovely for the best grip, best racing performance. And drive mode selector at the steering wheel. You can already see these are new digital instruments, 12.6. Soon we have everything come to life. And then the seats here, these are actually the best ones because they also have the microfiber in GTS. That's typical for the GTS. And this special pattern here is once again in this upper part. It feels a little bit less plush than the normal microfiber, I have to say, but maybe it's also good that it stays cooler. We have to see about that. So I would actually, from the interior trim, pick the GTS because then I can get most microfiber. It's not possible yet to get the 911 animal free, sadly. And then here you can see I can set the steering wheel down and also towards me. Then you can see now here these new digital instruments. They are really, really crisp. So the resolution of these digital instruments is awesome. Of course, you can still argue, if I want a 911, I also want an analog RPM meter. I can understand that view, definitely. So I would find it cool as well when I buy a 911 that the RPMs are still manual. These here offer you more flexibility. Yeah, it depends. Then with 189, 6'2", still a lot for 189, 6'2", blue eyes. Yeah. And then here I still have some headroom left. And the seats themselves, well, you can't be fooled. Most Porsche customers nowadays buy a Cayenne or a Macan. And there's a reason for that, because a lot of people do feel uncomfortable in 911. And of course, seats are not bad, but it's definitely not the best comfort long run. Some others say, hey, I do 1,000 kilometers, 600 miles with my 911, I have no problem. But I just recommend to you that you take a test seat first, drive maybe like do a little test ride, and then decide if these seats are fitting for you. But you can't be fooled that this is not something, you know, like in a comfort comparable to a very luxurious comfort car. You know what I mean? It is still predominantly a race vehicle. And the seating position itself is of course then racing style like. So when you sit down and say like, I want to start driving. Cockpit overview. Also, once again, with this really horizontal clean stress, like the carbon fiber decal element here, for example. And then there's always this hidden cup holder here on the passenger side. Then the glove box, dampened, very slim. I always love the analog clock we still have on the top here. Sports chrono pack. And then there's also this red background then here in this GTS version. New infotainment system as well, 10.9 inch, so we can just say 11 inch to make it a little bit easier. And they have also these upgrades here. This new menu structure, we know it from the other new Porsches, for example, but you can see it could definitely be quicker overall inside the Volkswagen AG. Porsche does have the best infotainment systems, the most reliable ones. Still, they're not top of the game if you compare it to other manufacturers, how quick and the whole system is. But you can access all the functions quite quickly here from the overview. It's also nice visualization here, for example. You can also here extend the spoiler in the rear. That is also possible. So yeah, maybe to show off also when driving static. And of course, if you use this drive selector here at the steering wheel, then also the extracted. So in here, for example, stuff also change according to that. for example, the sport exhaust system goes on when you are in the sport mode and so on. And this is also here your driver POV, very important for the Porsche, of course. I love it that I still have the manual jogs here on the steering wheel. This is, for example, here to change the instrument view. And this is, of course, then here you also have the night vision if you want that. And you have the rider map view, for example, like this, or then this more classic view with the RPM meter, so that like the visualizations are super impressive, crisp and clear. And then here, volume jog, also on the left side, so everything you control on the steering wheel is awesome. And yeah, as I said, analog RPM meter is great, but the crispness of the screen is also cool. And here, the shifting pedals, this feedback they give you, right? It's like, maybe you can also hear that. That is really, really good. And we have more keys right here, more buttons. You can also activate the exhaust note here. You can have a favorite button here for whatever. So when you click it, you can also then, for example, pick what you want to have. In this case, you can also, for example, set it to the Apple CarPlay. Android Auto is also possible. And what you can also see here, the CarPlay integration has been extended. That you inside of CarPlay, you can, for example, control the car vents. First time you can access to car functions from the CarPlay menu. But is it really that useful? I'm not so sure about that. So I prefer the solution, but we also have here that we just use CarPlay like for all the infotainment stuff and then use the climate unit with clicking sounds below. And this here the PDCC, Porsche Dynamic Chassis Control, and this is then this anti-tilt function. In the lower part, also really nice with all these clicking sounds. Yeah, also one of my favorite features, this metal knurling on top, brown shaver design. You click them, you can directly access the climate unit. You don't have to finger around in the infotainment system. That's the most lovely thing. And of course here, when you forgot shaving in the morning, you can also do it with the shifting lever. This for drive, forward, forward and reverse, and also the feedback it gives, that's pretty cool. Then you have these new indentations here, like kind of like stamped in. This is new, however, is how high gloss black. The seat heating, also with great clicking feedback, so this is all high quality. This cup holder you could also remove, however, but yeah, probably best to just leave it in place like this, and then it also clicks in beautifully. It's also adaptive, so this is like the driver cup holder. And then a nice microfiber cover for the armrest, fold it open. You now also have inductive charging pad. Hey, and it's also cooled, so there's less chance of overheating, and 2 USB-C chargers, so you can see also in these small details they have now modernized the interior. I told you about the rear seats, so you can either go without a bench, or you can... This looks weird, right? So Leah is just signaling me that like, it looks weird that my microphone is hanging down there and maybe like showing my breast or something. I don't know. Yeah, but it's a good placement for the microphone because sound first and then the looks, right? So you can either go. Shouldn't it slide forward automatically? Shouldn't it? I don't know. Or maybe not. Or does it? I'm not sure why it doesn't. Let's try it again. I don't know, but maybe then we have to do it like this. So, because the rear bench, you can either have a bench delete or go for a bench like this. And then they have the same microfiber covering here in the GTS version. And you can see here behind my seat, there's no possibility in this world that it could sit here. But what we could try is, if Leah sits down here on the passenger seat, if she can then fit on the seat behind that, because then you can maybe house 3 adults. Other than that, you have ISOFIX here on the outsides each. And if you then think about, it's also nice with the microfiber, but then if you think about, what about, I don't want to use the bench for people, but rather for luggage, then you can fold down this, and then you can put like the bag on here, then it's also better than for the seat that you have more care about the seat and just put it here on the back part. And of course behind that, but then the question is of course always like with securing the luggage and so on, maybe you need a net for that. And so the easiest thing is just to put it down, put the bag here and then have it secured basically with the back of the seat. So like this, Leah could sit in the passenger seat. Not super comfortable, it would still work space-wise. But then the question is, can she fit behind that actually? Oh. You lost something? Oh, you like the ankle necklace. So there we go. Now to the rear seats. Does it feel?
Headroom is.
Does it feel cozy?
No.
So does it work headroom wise?
No.
No. Well.
I think it's not so safe now.
Okay, and then let's put that one. Is it? Does it work? Knee room?
Yeah, hardly.
Barely. Maybe like for a couple of minutes, but yeah, but nothing more. So and then maximum 3, 4 definitely not. Here, by the way, when you fold down both rear bench parts, that looks like that. So you then get this even area. And you might have wondered about the ISOFIX. Well, there are some available, yes, but then here you have to remove that, and then they are just behind these anchors. And to show you a different color and a different body style, this is here ice gray, very interesting color, so I really love it. And this is the convertible, so if you want to drive open top, there's still the Targa available with this facelift, and also the classic convertible. And I would actually always go for the classic convertible. Not only here, you can actually open the roof with the key fob. That's actually pretty cool and goes very quickly. And the reason why would I go for the classic convertible, here also raises this one. So the classic convertible to me always has better wind features, so it has less wind noise, less turbulence inside of the cabin when the roof is down than the Targa. You might think that Targa has less wind noise and so on, but it's the other way around. And what's also pretty cool here with the convertible, here we go, electric large wind deflector. That's a very good solution here. So you can easily vary that if you want some additional passengers in the rear or not. Well, if there is space, because there's still like the lack of space in the rear, that's just the fact. But it's a very good solution, maybe that you can increase visibility quickly again if you don't need it, if you drive closed, or that they really love that system. And yeah, open top in the 911, that's totally my thing. Sport Plus. Yeah. Okay. That happened. Whew.
Oh,
AC.
it's getting hot in here.
Yeah. Ooh. Welcome to this driving part. Starting here on like motorway like or countryside roads, a little bit higher speed. That was a proper launch control, and you see that felt like launch control with the 911 Turbo S or something. That was like totally off the charts. You also heard the Leah meter.
Into red zone.
But you first could very well hear the sound as well, because I think she was even too shocked before she could even scream. Wow, that is something. So performance-wise, check with the hybrid. I'm really interested to check the video later myself and see like the time code, like how long we took actually in that acceleration. Wow. At the same time here, when we're switching to the driving modes, it is a wide span then between the comfort and sportiness, and that's also something they want to do here with this new facelift, that there is a wider span then, indeed between the different driving modes. So here the adaptive suspension is also doing a good job, that it's softer in the normal mode and stiffer in the sport mode. However, since we have these large wheels here, especially here standard GTS 20-inch in the front, 21-inch in the rear, of course the sportiness comes at some point at the price. Here the waves and so on, they are evened out very well by the suspension. Just like when there's some potholes or the road is a little bit uneven, then you do feel, of course, that you have large wheels and you do lose some of the comfort there. One more time. Wow, this doesn't get old. I mean, is this a Turbo S? Obviously not. It's a GTS, the GTS Hybrid. Yeah, performance-wise fulfills all the needs you could possibly ever have in the Sport Plus mode. Super sporty neat. What a great feeling from the steering wheel. Super precise as well. And of course you can always shift down yourself. shift up yourself as well. And indeed, turbo lag? Yeah. What is a turbo lag? It's like directly there. Interesting is that sound-wise, it is really different. Not sure if you can pick that up on camera, but especially from, you know, when I just use my right ear, you know, naturally the engine is in the rear there. There are different sounds coming from the engine indeed. Like when you let off the gas, it's always like, you know, this is very interesting. And on the other hand, when you are, for example, in a normal mode and you are not at high RPMs, then use the throttle, and sometimes it also like, it's like so different strange sounds from the engines. I wouldn't exactly say it's good in a way from the sound, but here the handling, I mean, lane change here is just incredible. So it's a great racing machine, no doubt about that. So we're gonna also do some laps for you on the racetrack, but we want to start with the like real-world customer experience here. So this is really something else. Great performance, awesome handling. Yeah, just the sound. I mean, we already heard it on the exterior. No, the 911 doesn't have the best sports car sound. It's just these flat engines, these boxer engines, as we call them in Germany. They are just not the best from the sound. We just have to face that, actually. This does also have a cruise control, by the way. You activate here at the lower column. You can also set it here up and down with this column. And when you once hit the brake, then it's deactivated. And talking about the brakes, indeed, you do have the same brake feeling, although you have recuperation here. And you can also see that actually in the instruments. So when you hit the brake, then you see this green, this green field there. This, and then when you hit the accelerator pedal, then you see the blue. So there you see that the electric motor is helping actually, whereas with green, it's gaining back some energy. And another good question is, do I feel a difference between Sport and Sport Plus? That is like quickly on the pedal with Sport, and then Sport Plus. Yeah. Okay.
You feel it,
yes, yes, there is a difference. So you remember earlier in the Sport Plus mode, they used the maximum boost also from the electric motor and also drain as much power from the battery as possible for one lap. And yeah, you definitely feel the difference. There is a larger gap even between Sport and Sport Plus. And that was also one of the development goals, to really have a large difference between each individual of these driving modes. So no turbo lag at all. Then you have great performance, even faster than, like in the turbo regions. The only thing sound-wise, I mean, this system obviously does not improve the sound, but it wasn't also like the crucial thing before, so I can definitely live with that. And this 50 kilograms extra of weight, I don't feel it here at all on the road. So I think we can definitely live with that. And when it also has some emissions advantages, why not? Question is also about the consumption or economy. We'll tell you more about that at the very, very end of our long drive. So we can talk about that. But other than that, so far, I definitely see the advantages. But this is also the same case on the racetrack. Right, now racetrack. Go to the Sport Plus mode. Let's go. We have a Turbo S in front of us, by the way, with the professional race driver. Let's see if we can catch him here with his GTS, because performance-wise, it's getting really close to the Turbo S now, definitely. Holy moly. Yeah, there's really no turbo lag. And I'm using the very same car here from the road. That was like 160 kilometers an hour already. And this is a special thing about the 911. You take it from the road with the same tires, with the same setup, especially here with the GTS, and you take it on the racetrack and it performs. Look at that. Great input here from that steering wheel, so it's super precise. I know exactly what I'm doing. Great control, and of course here I also have the all-wheel drive performance. That really gets you out of the corner really, really well. and the car feels very, very, very balanced. That's great. And look at that on the gas. Oh. And I'm not sure if you can hear this. I just asked the engineer about this. So there's pressure built up, and when I release the throttle, then the pressure is being released, but the air stays in the system, so they can again reuse it and have all the time, you know, that like the performance always there is never dropping. So it's very interesting. So the thing that you hear is like a valve opening, and you don't have too much pressure actually, and then the air is being released but stays inside the system. That's very, very interesting. Wow. Yeah, seats are also holding me tight, and the best thing is really the steering about the vehicle. We really can say that again. Wow. How you like the sound here from the interior? It's very different than what you see here from the exterior, definitely. Wow, and it's super smooth. Also good tarmac on that racetrack. That was Sport Plus, by the way. Let's now switch back to Sport. Let's just listen to that and experience it, how different it feels actually. A little bit on the curves here, sliding out a little bit. Yeah, it's a little bit less extreme, definitely. Interesting that even start-stop would be activated still in Sport mode now. It's not in Sport Plus, but still good performance. But definitely in Sport Plus, they have a little bit more performance just from the get-go as soon as I hit the throttle, because I have this more electric support there. There we go. Wow. I mean, it's a very tight racetrack here, but feels really much in control. Love that. So definitely this GTS here is a true race car. And yeah, that we also hear some more like in the wheel arches from like small stones and so on. This is the reason that the GTS is like on purpose a little bit lighter, has less dampening. So a normal 911 Carrera would be more silent. That's very interesting. The GTS is louder from everything you hear, and also less dampening, therefore also less weight. Yeah, and definitely works. And what about driving the convertible, the Cabriolet? Yeah, that's of course what I usually prefer. It's very interesting that depending on the market, the convertible has a higher or lower share, but overall in comparison to other cars on the market, the 911 still has an overall quite high convertible share, because it is a fun vehicle. It doesn't need to be practical in the first place. Then you might as well also go for the convertible. From the exterior, I already prefer the Coupé, yes, although the convertible also looks great with closed top. But then again, yeah, if you can drive open top in a nice atmosphere, nice weather and so on, it's always such a great enjoyable feeling, definitely. Also when you look outside and just enjoy a little bit more. Of course, you can also hear a little bit more of that sound than from the exterior, basically. Yeah, that's just more present, definitely, when you drive here with open top, normally. That could be another reason to go for the convertible, definitely. And the driving feeling itself, if you drive on the racetrack, then, of course, the Coupé, plays a role, being a little bit stiffer there from the chassis and so on, and it's a little bit lighter. But all other situations beside the racetrack, you won't notice a big difference. It will just drive the same. The soft tops are meanwhile so well insulated that the difference in the noise insulation you will rather feel at very, very, very high speeds. Other than that, it's also there not much of a difference. But then again, you can just hear more sound. That's pretty nice, isn't it? So, Leah, what about you? Convertible or Cabriolet? Sorry, yeah, that's the right question. Best question of the day: convertible or Cabriolet? What would you take?
Both.
Both, yeah. Best answer as well. Yeah, but I want to ask Coupé or convertible.
Convertible.
Yeah, convertible, of course.
So nice.
Yeah. It's for us definitely better. Although the Coupé is definitely the looker, but here also super smooth to drive, and yeah, of course usually I would wear sunglasses in the convertible, but I always find it a little bit disturbing to wear sunglasses on
And
camera
our
actually.
911 cap.
Oh, we have 911 caps. Look at that. There we go.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. Now I'm a real Porsche 911 convertible driver with the 911 cap. Then I also have some shade here under my eyes. So yeah, definitely really cool here with the convertible. One thing is missing when we drive a little bit quicker now. So up to which speed can we drive comfortably open top? Well, let's see. Nice, 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 nice. Here I would say at 90 kilometers an hour it's still fine. That's, I would think, like a speed you can... But there's already some wind turbulence behind us. Although, let me tell you, I said earlier, with the Targa it's always worse. And let's see here. Yeah, I mean, so above 100 kilometers an hour, above 60 miles an hour, the wind noises are actually picking up. That is, so it's more comparable to a very, very small cabriolet and not comparable to, let's say, for example, Audi A5 convertible, BMW 4 Series convertible, Mercedes C-Class convertible, something like that. These, let's say, mid-size convertibles, they can be driven like at 120 kilometers an hour, like 70, 80 miles an hour, and it's still very comfortable. But here, it's already that the windows are picking up, and for short trips, it's definitely fine. But I wouldn't drive this 120 kilometers an hour open on the motorway all the time or something like that. Do you hear that when I'm rolling really slowly? It sounds like I'm scrubbing the ground with the vehicle, but actually noise from the engine. Yeah, and I directly checked with the engineers. What is this sound actually that we hear when the car is just basically rolling, especially after being, like floored out and then just, mainly rolling? It is actually the Massenschwungrad. Listen and repeat, Massenschwungrad. So that's the German engineering term for that. So that's the mass flywheel. It's part of the combustion engine, and this is creating that sound. It's not that anything is broken, but it definitely sounds weirdo. For our consumption test, we went to 100 kilometers, a little bit uphill, and the same way back, 100 kilometers downhill, so we could also take into account some recuperation effects. And the one way up was the consumption of about 10 liters on 100 kilometers, and the way back was 7 liters on 100 kilometers. So a mixed average run is 8.5 liters on 100 kilometers. So it's a little bit less than 30 mpg US and a little bit more than 30 mpg UK. Overall, I think quite acceptable. As for the consumption here, yes, the hybrid increases the efficiency due to these recuperation effects. When we talk about pricing, the hazard lights need to be on to warn you because the base 911 starts at now around $120,000 or 130,000 euros in the German price. And the GTS Hybrid actually starts now $165,000 or 171,000 euros. But as it stands here right now, with also equipment on, alone here, these carbon ceramic brakes are 10,000 euros extra. So the overall car, as you see it right here in the 911 GTS Hybrid all-wheel drive spec, 218,000 euros. And it is an incredible vehicle, and yes, the hybrid system also works very well to eradicate this turbo lag. However, you really have to be honest and say that this is also ridiculously overpriced. Yes, it's great performance, it's a superb vehicle, but the prices have gone so skyrocketed on the whole car market, and the Porsche prices are meanwhile just insane. You just have to admit that. Nevertheless, so much fun with this vehicle, no doubt about that. And of course, we have more exclusive Porsche content here for you.